Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the Spark File here to let you know that the doors are open for the Spark File Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the Chief Creative Officer and Chief Marketing Officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk. Go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume. The Sparkfile podcast may contain profanity and other adult content. Please use your discretion.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I want to make or how I want to be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the Spark File. This is your one-stop shop for creative inspiration.
I'm Laura Camien.
I'm Susan Blackwell. We are makers who make all kinds of things.
And if you're like us and you like making stuff all the time, sometimes, you know, the fish pond of inspiration can get a little tapped out.
So we're always on the lookout for fresh ideas, images, and inspiration that spark our creativity and pique our curiosity. Things that inspire us to please, Susan, won't you get up off your ass and make something like this podcast?
Anything. Like a quilted blanket.
Oh, like a nap inside a quilted blanket.
Oh, I make one of those.
I make a nap.
I make a nap every day. Every episode, we're going to reach into the Spark File and exchange some sparks. And then we're going to talk to some folks who spark us as well.
And if you're not careful, you just might get your fish pond restocked. Mm-hmm. So without further ado, let's open up that Spark File. Do you want to go first or should I go first?
Oh my God, I want you to go first.
You do?
I do. I like it. I don't know. I like it.
Okay.
I can't explain why.
I like it too because then when you go, I can just completely relax and enjoy. Mm-hmm. Okay, great. I'll go first. Ooh, I just got a little nervous. Okay. This spark from my Spark File, I'm opening up my Spark File, and the spark is this. Once you see the zombies, you can't unsee them.
Oh, God.
That's the spark, Cams.
Okay.
I have to tell you, I genuinely love and look forward to these recording sessions because we do spend a lot of time together when we're not doing this.
It's true.
And we're, spending a lot of time researching and preparing for this thing. And there's so many things that I feel like, I'm like, oh my gosh, did you? And I'm like, sorry, save it for the podcast.
Can't say it.
So I'm always excited to share this with you. And also because it's like giving
in real life anymore.
It's like giving, that's right. We speak through an intermediary. It's like giving you a present and it's like getting a present.
Oh,
it's like a gift exchange.
I love that.
I love it too. Okay, so the spark is once you see the zombies, you can't unsee them.
Oh, shit.
Okay. The essence of the spark originally came from an article in the New York Times written by a writer named Kevin Roos, I think his name is pronounced. Okay. Also an article by Karen Sabel Lejeski and Martin Westwell on a site called theconversation.com and a show on WBUR called Here and Now.
Aww.
Doesn't that sound like the most like NPR?
Here and Now.
Welcome to Here and Now.
We are here.
I'm Susan
and
Blackwell.
It is now.
Okay. Did you see the movie 8th Grade? by Bo Burnham.
I have not seen it yet.
I think
it's on my watch list, but not yet.
So I was like, 8th grade was hard. Do I want to watch that movie? But I watched it on Hunter Bell's recommendation.
That's so specific because you were like, 8th grade was rough for me. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to take 8th grade, the movie.
Yes.
Wow.
Because just from the trailer, I was like, this is about
Ouch.
the painful weirdness and isolation that 8th grade can bring. I guess. So that movie, I will tell you, watching that, I watched it with my sister when I was home recently. Hi, Julie. It made me want to throw my cell phone down the toilet. I'm watching that the young woman who plays the central character is so good. She is so authentically, she's so realistic. She's so 8th grade. She's so awkward. It's so good. She's really, really good in that movie. Good job. I don't know your name. So I'm watching this sweet 8th grader just totally glued to her phone, just swiping and liking and swiping and being irritable when her dad tries to engage with her. And I was like, it's been a long time since I was in 8th grade. And sometimes now I still feel like that. Like I want to go to sleep, but I can't stop swiping and clicking. And I'm like fighting sleep just to like have more of what?
Of what?
Or I'm having a conversation with somebody I love and I have to fight this dumb urge that I want to look at my phone with no specific task in mind.
Yeah.
I just want to pick it up and look at it. It ain't good. It doesn't feel good. And it does feel like I have a little teeny baby addiction.
You're not alone.
I would imagine. So I was watching this thing and this woman, Christy Goodwin, who is a technology and education researcher, explains what happens to children's brains. But I think I don't think this is just kids, but when they're using technology. So looking at this is a quote from her, looking at Snapchat, looking at Facebook and Instagram will give dopamine hits that no matter how competent, dynamic, engaging a teacher is, it's no match for what's going on the screen. It's that digital validation, like getting a like, but we enter into what's called the state of insufficiency.
Ooh.
We never feel done. We never feel complete.
Shit.
And I was like, I know the state of insufficiency. Yeah. When you're looking at your phone, for me, it's like shopping online, looking at, I have a terrarium problem, like looking at something that I'm kind of like obsessed with.
Yes.
Like plants, terrariums, vintage. P.S. My birthday's coming up. But the state of insufficiency. And I think it stokes it. But also I think you're just always seeking dopamine.
Whoa. Yeah. I'm still just with that phrase because
the state of insufficiency
just resonates too much, almost painfully so.
Yeah.
Holy crap. Yeah. With me too. Like it's not so much social media, but is articles, and then I'll be like, let me just read one more. And I have this thing, whether it's an Instagram feed or this news feed, I'm like, I just need to get through it. I need to get through all of these. And then when I pick up my phone again, I need to get from there to where I was before. I'm like,
no.
Why?
I'm like you always have to
miss
keep
something
up with everything in your Instagram feed?
It does. Yeah. I need to scroll down to the place where it says you're all caught up.
You're caught up. But that's a dopamine hit too.
I'm caught up.
I think so. I think that's check. I accomplished something today. I caught up with my Instagram feed.
I'm all caught up with
this
my
makes me want to
Instagram.
kill myself. So my friend Jonathan Bernstein was the first person who told me about virtual distance. It's a psychological and emotional sense of detachment that accumulates little by little at the subconscious or unconscious level as people trade off time interacting with each other for time spent screen skating, swiping, swishing, pinching, tapping, and so on.
Okay. Will you say it? Say it one more time.
Say it with human language. So virtual distance is this idea that when you like fall into your phone K-hole and you're just like have that little dopamine addiction going on where you're just like in it, that at a subconscious level, little by little, you trade off really engaging with another human being for the phone, for engaging with your phone. And so you can be sitting right next to somebody. I could be sitting as close as I am to you now, and we're a million miles away from each other, virtual distance, because I'm trying to catch up on my Instagram feed, and you're trying to finish, I don't know, a tweet that you're tweeting.
My partner and I think I'm so thankful that we are very conscious of this. Like, we put our phones down, and when we're together. And I notice, like, in those instances where it's like, oh, hold on, I need to check something, and we're both like, we're on our phones, or he's on his phone and I am not, it feels like we are a million miles away.
Yeah.
I'm just like, hi, so I guess you left. You've literally left the room.
Yeah.
You're in some other virtual room right now with some other people, and I don't know who, but I'm still here.
Yeah.
It's a terrible feeling, and you see it happening all the time. You walk by people, like, that's all they're doing. They're sitting together. But Susan, can I ask you something about, like, I don't want to derail your spark, but something that you said earlier about, this is like results of a study of kids. This is the kids on this?
They're talking about kids.
I feel like, while it's true for adults, we at least can reference a time when this wasn't true for us.
Hold the phone.
Okay.
Hold that thought.
Okay.
I'm with you.
Okay. I'm tracking.
Before we get to that, let me just say this is a measurable phenomenon, and it can have some surprising effects. For example, when virtual distance is relatively high, people become distrustful of one another. So a result can be people keep their ideas to themselves instead of sharing them with others.
Right.
And in the workplace where it's critical that you exchange ideas, and it's necessary to take risks to innovate and collaborate and learn, it can really hamper that. Another unintended consequence: people disengage from helping behaviors, meaning that they leave others to fend for themselves, and that can leave people feeling isolated, which can lead to, like, low job satisfaction.
Is that like sort of in a this is a really harsh word, but like in a retribution sort of way of, like, well, if you're ignoring me, you're in your phone clearly, like, I'm not going to help.
Good question, though.
Is it just like
that.
It causes that detachment of, like, I don't feel responsible for these other people because they're not here with me anyway.
Maybe.
Weird.
If I had conducted the study, I could answer that. The article went on to explain how it's one thing for adults to experience this and then make a different choice. So, for instance, if you and I have dinner and we spend the evening texting and instead of engaging with each other, we're likely to feel at the end of that meal emotionally disconnected. But because we're older, we can reflect on that and come to realize that virtual distance got in the way of what we really wanted and what we really needed. So we can reflect on that and make a different choice, a choice that feels better.
That's right.
That kind of self-awareness and understanding about how we think and learn is called metacognitive insight. Metacognitive insight, where we can intentionally turn our attention towards reviewing a situation.
Right. Even in the moment, you might have the presence of mind to say, please excuse me, I need to take
That's
this.
right. And I'm trying to get better at that. And sometimes I'm failing at that because the phone will chime, and it happened yesterday. Where, and I'm embarrassed, but it happened yesterday where, Nathan is fully mid-sentence and I'm fully like, he's talking and I'm like, but everybody's on Marco Polo. Yeah. So just trying to be better at being like, pardon me 1 second, as if I was it's kind of like if you were in a room full of real actual people and somebody tapped you on the shoulder, that you would say, can you pardon me just a second? Or you'd turn to the tapper and you'd be like, I'll be with you in just a moment. Like, or choose not to, anyway.
Can I take it back, way back? My grandpa, I got to say, this was with just a regular telephone. He was irate about the fact that this thing, some inanimate object, would make a noise. And that noise meant we all have to drop what we're doing to tend to the noise making machine. And it bothered him most at dinner. And he's like, we are having dinner here. Just because that thing decides to make a noise does not mean that we have to stop our conversation and go tend to whoever that is on the other end of the line. Yeah, it really, really bothered him.
Wow.
I'm pretty glad he's not around to see where it's evolved
he
to.
would stroke out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Due respect. Would he take the phone off the hook or unplug the phone?
No, he would just say, leave it be.
We're not answering it.
That.
And that was probably pre-answering machine or service.
That's right. It was pre-answering
So it just ring and ring and ring and ring and ring, which also seems really, really annoying.
Yeah. And my grandma would be like, well, people will think what we're, and he's like, I don't care what people think. I don't care if they think we're not at home or if they think we're rude for not answering. I think they're rude for calling at dinner time.
Probably
so it was so fascinating.
Sales call anyway.
Yeah.
To your earlier point, most adults today grew up in an era before digital technology was as ubiquitous as it is now. So we who didn't grow up, I didn't have a cell phone until I was like, I didn't have a cell phone until I was like, do you remember when you got a cell phone?
Yeah, I was a holdout. So I was
Me too.
definitely probably late 20s.
Yeah,
and I was just like, and eventually work gave me one. So I was like, so I guess I'm going to have one now.
Yes. I was wrap your minds around this, youngsters. I don't think I got a cell phone till I was about 28.
If you can believe, there was a time when you, like, I think many of us thought, like,
you figured your shit out before you left the house. You figured out how you got places. You figured out where you're going to go. You had to communicate with people before you left the house.
That's right. And you just thought,
I feel like we walked to school through the snow.
We did. But you definitely, there was a very distinct moment where it seemed like maybe we're all not going to buy into this.
Yes.
Maybe some people will, maybe some people won't. But then the tide turned and it was like, no, you have to.
So there's a lot of people who they have always had screens. Right. They have always had technology.
Yep.
So we adults who haven't always had it, even if we don't know the phrase virtual distance, there's an instinctive understanding of what that is. And we have experience to know that interactions can be different. But young people who have always had screens, on the other hand, have less experience with the world. And many children in technologically advanced societies have grown up with smartphones and tablets and other forms of digital technology within arm's reach. And if they grow up with virtual distance as the norm, they might not know that interactions can be different. Or how you get to that.
They won't know.
Potentially. But you hear those things now about how like Silicon Valley, like, did I say silicone? Silicon Valley, like how people are like, no, our kids don't use screens. And I'm like, you know something. And I don't know. It's like, I don't know. It gives me a feeling.
Yep.
Which led me to this article, which was really the spark of all of this. There was this great article in the New York Times. Have you read it? Called "Do Not Disturb: How I Ditched My Phone and Unbroke My Brain" by Kevin Roos. Did you read this?
I have not read this.
Well, strap in because Kevin did us all a solid.
Thanks, Kev.
Yes, there's this dude, Kevin, who's a tech writer for the New York Times. He described it as a phone problem. He said he had a phone problem. And he says, if you have a smartphone, statistics suggest you may have a problem too. There's a sentence in this that I thought was so great. He wrote, unlike alcohol or opioids, phones aren't an addictive substance so much as a species level environmental shock. And I was like, word. Whoa. It's like all of a sudden our brains, our nervous systems, our eyes, our bodies are given this supercomputer in our hand, relatively quickly. And he says, we might someday evolve the correct biological hardware to live in harmony with portable supercomputers that satisfy our every need and connect us to infinite amounts of stimulation. But for most of us, that hasn't happened yet. So he's been a heavy phone user his whole adult life, but he said last year he really started to notice it becoming a problem. He was unable to read long books, watch full-length movies, have long uninterrupted conversations. Social media was making him angry and anxious. And digital spaces that he used to find soothing, like group texts or podcasts, weren't helping.
Isn't it interesting that like all the things you named that he couldn't do anymore, the long form things he couldn't do, and then he said, and the short form things he named were making him irritable. So even though he could do social media, it was just annoying him and upsetting him.
Yes. To me, that's all. That sounds like an addiction thing where it's like at first it felt great. And then I just kept heaping it on. And I was like, it didn't feel good anymore. So he tried various things, just hacks to sort of curb his usage. Like he would delete Twitter on the weekends or turn his screen to grayscale or install app blockers, but he relapsed. Have you ever tried turning your screen to grayscale?
No. What?
I was doing a movie last summer, I think, and this fantastic actress, hi, Michelle Williams. Hold on, I just dropped that name. Let me get that. She showed me, I noticed she had her phone on grayscale. And I was like, what's
that about?
That? And she was like, I'm trying to make my phone less like appetizing, less magnetic. And I was like, she's like, do you want me to do yours? And I was like, yes.
How do you do that?
It's somewhere in settings.
Okay.
I think it's in, I forget.
And what does it do? Just makes it all like black and white?
Everything is in grayscale. So it's weird, and it really it does make it less appetizing, but I realize that so much of what I want to see in my phone, yes, I use it for the utilities like communication, calendaring, directions, what am I dressing for weather-wise, but so much of what I pick it up for when I'm just trying to not have to sit with myself is color, shopping, pick beautiful pictures. Like I'm looking for, I just want to fill my eyes with colorful, distracting things. I think that's why people love Candy Crush. I've never been a Candy Crush person, but I think people like looking at like pretty gems and, so she did my phone and then I couldn't take it. I had it for like 24 hours and I was like, I couldn't take it. And I changed it back. Yeah. Something
you just said, Susan, reminds me of this very popular video of Louis C.K. Sorry. This was pre-Louis C.K.
Yes. Pre-scandal.
Pre-scandal. But when he talks about like having pulled over on the side of the road, sitting with himself and just like let himself cry.
Yeah.
I love that so much because I do think there's a lot of truth in that we're like, oh God, I'm about to feel some feelings. If I sit with myself, I might think some thoughts and feel some feels. And so let me grab something to keep that from happening.
There's a quote I tried to find. If anybody can find it, I couldn't find it. I feel like I saw it on, ironically, social media. And it's about all of these screens being sort of like these pacifiers. They're like pacifiers.
Yeah.
So anyway,
amazing.
This dude, Kevin, ended up contacting this science journalist named Catherine Price, who wrote a book called How to Break Up with Your Phone. And it's a 30-day guide to eliminating bad phone habits. I learned a little bit about Catherine Price. She realized that she wanted to reevaluate her relationship with her phone a few years ago when she had recently had a little baby. And she was sitting one night with the baby in the dark. She was just exhausted. And she thinks maybe because of her exhaustion, she had a little out-of-body experience. And she sort of saw the scene as it looked from the outside.
Yeah.
Her newborn baby is looking up at her with these little eyes that were just developed enough to focus on her face. And Catherine was looking down at her phone, searching on eBay for antique door hardware, which she was really obsessed with. And she thought to herself, wow, I don't want this to be my daughter's first impression of a human relationship, let alone her first impression of her relationship with her mother.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So
that's a powerful
I thought it's so Black Mirror. Like that ad for Black Mirror. Do you remember the one? It was like a baby holding with like its face was lit up by an iPad.
Oh,
It
no.
was in the dark and it
Uh-uh.
had a little baby
Ugh.
with its face lit up. And it was so, at PS, I don't have kids. I just have dogs. And I totally get and understand why people need to use it as a tool for their kids. Like I'm not shitting on that at all. And I can imagine, God, if I could make my dogs be like, when my dogs will not stop screaming and barking. If I could put my cell phone in front of them and they would stop,
quiet them down.
I would put my cell phone in front of them so fucking
Sure.
fast. Yeah.
But what she's describing is baby looking at her face while her face is looking at a screen.
Yeah.
And for that to be like that first impression of what this is like.
And I didn't dig into the science of it, but I think there is something about, this is a vague recollection of like parents and babies or babies and adults, like spending time looking at each other.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons why babies are so cute, not neat. There's a word for it. Babies are so cute because they want to be looked at so that they can be cared for and safe. But also there's something about the development of the brain with that stuff. Anyway, I don't know what I'm talking about.
But I like it.
Fakes, misremembered science. We should do a segment called Misremembered Science where I just try to like pull this, like I read an article 7 years ago and just try to pull the information up out of my butthole. It's going to be wrong.
Try to explain it to you.
So Catherine became Kevin's phone coach for a month, and she helped Kevin make a plan so that he could have a healthier relationship with his phone. I guess I didn't know until I read this article that digital wellness is this budding industry, and there's a bunch of different approaches to dealing with screen addiction, essentially. And
Your
here's a
Spark
few.
is like chock full of other sparks.
I know. It sparks aplenty. There's something called a light phone with extremely limited features that's supposed to help people detach from all of those juicy magnetic apps.
Yeah.
Nathan actually about a month ago said, he was like, I'm thinking about just like getting rid of the smartphone and only having a cell phone to talk on and to text.
Yeah.
And that's it. And then he didn't. And I don't blame him, but I understand why he said it.
Mm-hmm.
You can purchase digital detox packages at hotels, like at fancy hotels. You can go and like have a digital detox.
Sorry, does that mean you're paying them to like hang on to your phone while you're there?
Probably.
Oh my God.
There are digital Sabbath movements where people commit to a day a week where they don't use technology at all.
Okay.
So when
Get into
Catherine
that.
Price was working with this author, Kevin, she was looking for the root causes of his phone addiction, including emotional triggers. So on her plan, you can still use Facebook and Twitter and, on a desktop or a laptop, and there's no hard and fast time limit. It's simply about unhooking your brain from harmful routines that it's adopted with a particular device and then hooking it into better habits. So this dude, Kevin's screen time statistics showed that he was engaging with his phone about twice as much as the average American, about 5.5 hours daily, and picking it up about 101 times daily.
Whoa.
So I guess the average American is on their device about 2.5 or 3 hours per day and picks it up about 50 times, maybe.
Wow.
So the way that one of the things she had him do was set these sort of speed bumps so that he had to think for a second before engaging with his phone. So for instance, she suggests in her book, you can put a rubber band or a hair tie around your phone. So you just have to like take it off before you, just a little speed bump.
Yeah.
I think about, you and I made a light commitment with each other that I've been doing okay at keeping, which is whenever I spend money, I have to record it.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I spend money, I have to record it. And it's not to be like, it's just to observe.
Yeah.
Just to observe, because especially with digital payments, I can, and not actually touching cash, I can spend money and not register how much I'm actually spending. So it's a little it just flows through my fingers. Another thing that he did was he set up a lock screen that showed his lock screen, instead of like a picture of his dog, it has 3 questions that say, what for, why now, what else?
Whoa.
So that's from,
That's
I think that's from her
great.
book. So, this made him aware, brought him some awareness of the habits he's developed in relation to his phone. He said he noticed that he was doing, and I wonder if you have any of these. I know I do. He reached for his phone every time he brushed his teeth. He reached for his phone. Every time he went to put his credit card, like was in a store buying something, put his credit card in the thing, he would check his phone.
Yeah.
Until the credit card
Yeah.
thing
Oh my
went
God,
boop,
because
boop.
there's probably 60 seconds there that you have to fill.
Yeah. And I'm like, Kevin, I feel you. I think it's really hard to sit with myself, and I think it's only become harder. So I usually have to be listening to a podcast. And like I said earlier, I fight sleep. When I'm left to my own devices, I fight sleep and just it's almost painful. Like I don't want to be looking at the iPad and I can't stop looking at the iPad and I have to force myself.
Yeah. I do. I've been trying to break this habit, but because my phone is my alarm, so I reach for it to turn the alarm off.
Yes, of course.
And then I pick it up and I'm like, okay. And I it's not social media that draws me in, but my news feed. So I open up my news feed and it can be anything to real and actual worldly news to, who wore it best. And then I'm just all over the map. And meanwhile, 30, 40 minutes has gone by and I'm not out of bed yet.
Oh, yes.
And I'm just like, okay, this needs to stop.
Yes. Yes. So our boy Kev started practicing what he called doing nothing. Like when he was walking to work, lifting up his head, looking at buildings, looking at architectural details, people watching on the subway instead of being on his phone. Like if he was at a restaurant waiting for a friend to show up, he would look out the window instead of checking social media.
Well done, Kev.
Well done. And I've been, since I read this article, trying this, and I notice the more tired I am, the harder it is for me I want to pick up my phone. There's like a corollary there.
So you can kind of check out and just be like, I just want to
dive into the virtual swimming pool, the endless parade of imagery that is in my cell phone. So Catherine, who was his phone coach, warned Kevin he might feel this existential malaise when he wasn't distracting himself with his phone. Because if you have space and time, feelings do.
That's right.
That's like what you were saying earlier with that Louis C.K.
What's it
thing.
all for?
But she also warned that paying more attention would make him realize how many other people use their phones to cope with boredom and anxiety. And she said, once you look around the elevator and see the zombies checking their phones, you can't unsee it. Once you see the zombies, you can't unsee it. So last week I was coming to your place. It was probably it was dark outside. It was dinner time. It was dark outside, but the lights in the shops were still open.
Yeah.
And it looked like people had not just gotten off work. It looked like people had gotten off work, gone to the gym, were getting their dinner, and were heading on. And I walked by Sweet Greens, and because it was dark outside, the window was all lit up, and the entire line of people, it was packed, and the entire line of people had their heads bowed, looking at their cell phones. And I wished I had my camera because I wanted to take a picture and show you. But then I was like, I don't need my camera because this is happening.
Describe this to you.
But no, because it's everywhere.
Everywhere.
It's so ubiquitous and it's all the time. And I thought, well, I don't have to get my camera out because next time Laura and I'll just say, hey,
Look, there
next
it
time you
is.
pass any plate glass window, look inside and you're going to see what I saw.
Yep. So true. And don't you think also when you're not, like if you're in a line and you're not looking at your phone, you decide to say something to someone, like people are even weirded out,
girl.
like, whoa, why are you
No.
talking to me?
Yeah, no.
Like, I'm just being a human.
Yeah, no, that it's a whole different level of, that's not really socially acceptable
I know.
anymore.
Like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah. So then the author, Kev,
Hey, Kev.
sweet Kev, thank you for taking one for the team on this one, Kev. He assessed all his apps. He Marie Kondo'd that shit. He was like, the ones that spark joy and contribute to healthy habits stay, tossed the rest. So he deleted all social media apps, news apps, Camien,
Ooh.
and games. Sorry, friends.
And games.
He kept messaging services, non-distracting utilities like cooking and navigation apps. His home screen is just the essentials. It's calendar, email, password manager. He disabled push notification. This one hurts my heart.
Yeah.
He disabled push notifications for everything other than phone calls and messages from a preset list of people that include his boss, his wife, and a handful of close
Boy,
friends.
that makes you do the hard work of figuring out
who you really want to hear from.
Who do I really need to hear from?
Yeah. To your point about where you keep your phone, this is also relevant. Studies have shown that people who don't charge their phones in their bedrooms are significantly happier than those who do. The Catherine Price, the lady with the baby, she charges her phone in a closet. Kevin started charging his phone in a locking mini safe, and it reduced his nighttime usage. I know that I charge my cell phone right by the bed, and it isn't great. It isn't great because it's the last thing and the first thing, and
that's
who
right.
fucking needs it?
No, I think I need to change that first and foremost.
Even maybe just like across the room.
Across the room is fine.
But then he had all this extra time, because think about the time Kevin is buying back in his life by making all of these changes.
What could he do with that?
He signed up for a pottery class.
Yes.
Yes.
He's making stuff.
Yes, with his hands. And he said it was a great phone substitution because it was manually challenging. It demands concentration for hours, and you get your hands dirty, which is a deterrent to fiddling with your screen.
That's right. Very smart.
So smart. And then he conferred with his wife and was updating her on his progress. And she said, I'm sad you're having trouble with this because it's been great for me. Because he'd been like a better listener, more attentive, less distracted. Psychologists have a name for this. It's called phubbing. Or snub. It's PHUBBING, and that is snubbing a person in favor of your phone.
I've heard of that, and Wes and I joked around about it. Yeah, we'll be like, are you phubbing me?
Phubbing.
Yeah.
Studies have shown that excessive phubbing decreases relationship satisfaction and contributes to feelings of depression and alienation.
It's like snubbing someone by way of phone. Yeah. Phubbing. I'm sorry if I've ever phubbed you, Susan.
I apologize for phubbing you. I'm sure I've done it. And then he was like, but isn't there some professional necessity? Like right now, I mean, you have a situation, a work situation that's kind of like bubbling right there.
That's right.
So you have your phone handy. And he was saying, but what about work? Just like you're experiencing right now. And his coach assured him that he wasn't jeopardizing his career by being slightly later to the news. And she encouraged him to look at the return on investment of minimizing his screen time, which I think is an interesting, I don't know. When I was reading this article, I was like, this is one of those things where it's one thing to talk about it, like we're talking about it right now, and be like, interesting, fascinating, phubbing, virtual distance. But it's another thing to do what Kevin did.
That's right.
And actually take the ride.
That's right.
And I think this is a super worthwhile exercise and experiment that he did.
I bet there were a lot of people in his life who loved it. And then you think about who might not like it. Your employer might not like not being able to like reach you at a moment's notice. And that's okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
you might have your spouse, like but if they're on that preset list, I guess maybe, I don't know, but yes, I feel you. So he, then decided to go to take a 48-hour, like off the grid vacation.
Wow.
And he was not allowed to use his phone or any other device. So he didn't have Google Maps. He got lost. He had to ask for directions. He didn't have Yelp. He had trouble finding restaurants that were open. But he said mostly it was great. He was bored. Sometimes he had to sit with himself. He felt his nerves softening. He did crossword puzzles. He lit a fire. He looked at the stars. Yeah. He
So
said,
good.
I cannot stress enough that under the right conditions, spending an entire weekend without your phone in your immediate vicinity is incredible. You have to try it. And I was like, that's where like the actual doing of it might be super duper interesting.
It's I have to say that every year Wes and I go on a vacation with his family.
Yeah.
It's super low key cabins, lakeside.
Word. How's the cell phone reception?
It's non-existent.
Non-existent.
And we're on boats the whole time. Pretty much we get up, we get on a boat, and
Oh.
we get home, we have dinner, we go to bed, we get up, get on a boat. So that's how the whole week goes. So there's really not a
kind
lot
of
of
boat?
point. Just we have usually his amazing cousins rent a houseboat. They have a speedboat and they have ski-doos.
Oh, you're doing
some-
water fun all that time.
Yeah, and sometimes
Shit.
we even have a pontoon boat as well. So it's like different people can drive different things, and you can gather in different configurations and be like, I'm going to be on the houseboat today. I'm going to hang out and read on the houseboat, or like, I'm going to ski. I'm going to be on the
Never
speedboat.
gonna be on a boat. I love that song. It's a T-Pain.
So good.
T-Pain won the Masked Singer. Congratulations,
Hello,
T-Pain.
T-Pain. I didn't know that.
Keys quality all the way.
But point is, that vacation is so fun, and I usually end up, finding a way to get to my computer maybe twice in that week,
And the whole week.
And
So you've
saying-
done a version of this piece of this experiment.
yeah,
How does it feel?
it's pretty amazing.
I'm doing this. I don't remember doing. Oh, we take a cruise sometimes, and that's
then you're off the grid.
equivalent.
But isn't it
P.S.
sad that we
Nathan's
have to
favorite
put our
vacation
yeah?
is cruising because he can completely detach.
I didn't know that. We're gonna have to circle back on that offline.
Yeah.
But I think like, well, how sad is it? See, we're talking about situations where we have to put ourselves in the circumstances
Right.
of like literally not having access.
Yeah.
What Kevin did was, I could have access right now,
Yes.
and I'm choosing not to.
Yeah.
I think that's much harder.
I do too, and I think it's interesting, and it's not just like we do that once a year for 2 weeks, 2 days, or
Yeah.
a week. Like this is a lifestyle shift he's describing.
yeah.
Over the course of 30 days, his average phone time dropped from around 5 hours a day to just over an hour.
Whoa.
I'm proud of him.
Whoa.
I don't know you, Kevin, but I'm proud of you.
Yeah, good job.
The amount of times he picked up his phone went from 100 to 20.
Wow.
Yes.
Amazing.
Catherine said, your life is what you pay attention to. If you want to spend it on video games or Twitter, that's your business, but it should be a conscious choice.
Yes.
That's what I when I did at the end of 2018, I did that like 30-day plus creativity challenge.
That's right.
That just doing that creativity challenge, it sort of reprioritized
Yep.
my life in
Yep.
a very, and this is what I mean by you can't know it until you do it. And where I came out was, I want to create more and consume less.
Mm-hmm.
And that's this. I was like, you can be on your phone, consume all you want, but do it consciously instead of
right.
just being like, we just had dinner, which means now we watch 4 hours of TV. And I've spent many, many, many years of my life being that person
That's right.
who just habitually consumes. So it's just about being conscious instead of just letting it happen.
I think there's also something too, like what you said, you are, how did Catherine put it? You are what you focus on.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are many, many belief systems to that. So if you think about like, if I am what I focus on, I'm like, so I am about like 30 seconds of 100 topics instead of any kind of specialist or expert on one topic, because all I'm doing, my brain is bouncing around from thing to thing on this little screen.
Didn't I give you that? I saw, again, ironic. I saw that thing on Twitter or Instagram that I then showed you where it was like you and I showed you that, right? When you were up at my house,
I'm not
where
sure what
I was
it is
like
yet.
that. It was a list of like, I don't know why I don't feel so good. I just like saw a picture of someone's dog, saw a picture of
yes.
read about how a journalist was beheaded,
Yeah.
looked at a picture of Chihuahua, like how it's just like
Yes.
being whipsawed by imagery.
Yep.
Now, I think ingesting imagery like this podcast is a way to restock your fish pond.
Mm-hmm.
That ingestion of imagery may give you that feeling. And I already forgot.
It can be intentional as opposed to...
but it can be that state of insufficiency. It can just be
Yes.
like, gimme, like a gluttony almost.
It's like what they say about eating, like when you eat junk food, you're continually hungry because you're actually not receiving any nutrients.
Oh.
So your body is still like, and I need more
That's a
because
bummer.
I'm waiting on the nutrients.
Got
At any
it.
point, am I going to get some nutrients?
But it takes time to recalibrate that.
Yeah. But this same thing of like, if you're
Interesting.
just feeding yourself, you're like, I have fed myself 4 hours worth of news. Why am I still hungry for more?
Interesting. Kevin concluded by saying, I haven't taken an MRI or undergone a psychiatric evaluation, but I'd bet that something fundamental has shifted inside my brain in the past month.
Interesting.
I still love that world of technology and probably always will, but now the physical world excites me too. The one that has room for boredom, idle hands, and space for thinking.
Mm-hmm.
I look people in the eye and listen when they talk. And when I get sucked into my phone, I notice and self-correct. I don't think I have had the, I don't think I was as extreme as he was by any stretch of the imagination, but I do have a taste of this in my own life. And I don't know, I'm just thinking, it's hard to sit with yourself, but I think this really does go to creativity, like that being in the physical world, having boredom, having space for thinking, having just fucking time. Like he bought back all that time so he could take the pottery class.
Yeah.
I feel like I burn so much goddamn time fucking around in my phone. And it's really, it's not what I think of as like a good use of screen time. It's bullshit.
Just crap.
It's numbing. It's like a pacifier. So I'm thinking, I know that this isn't a life hack show. This is about, creativity, inspiration, and restocking your fish pond show. But this speaks to me in terms of how I some changes I could make. I aspire to, I don't know, just.
Well, I think that if we never let ourselves have the feelings or have the time to think, we're not going to create anything. I'm not going to write my next play in the cracks between, my favorite shows and my phone screen taking up my time. Like I have to actually sit in the space, sit in front of a blank page.
Yeah.
And
that can be so anxiety provoking.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
So many other things. I just I FaceTimed with my niece on Saturday, and I love her so dearly. She's a teenager now. And she's like, I'm bored. I was like, oh, well, are you still playing the guitar? Yeah. Why don't you could like play your guitar? Meh. Okay, well, have you started that little she's going to take a screenwriting class because she likes making little films. Sorry, I don't mean to say little films. She likes making film.
There you go.
And I'm like, you could get started reading. You could read a screenplay. Oh, I used to read. I don't read so much anymore.
Oh, how old is she?
She's 15. So we just went thing by thing by thing. And I'm like, oh, okay. All right. Yeah, there's so many more tempting things to distract you than actually doing.
It's hard. It's hard to measure up to those yummy, nums.
I could do things that would like let me check out as opposed to things that require me to check in.
Yeah. So that's my spark, and it all goes back to once you see the zombies, you can't unsee the zombies.
Susan, that was so good.
Oh, Camien.
I'm going to look for zombies from this point forward. They're everywhere.
Look within you. The spark file! You have your actual spark file in front of you.
I have my actual spark file. It sounds like this, Susan.
It's a book.
It's a book of sparks. It's my spark file.
You keep your sparks in a book.
I do, but I think I'm going to upgrade to an iPad. Susan uses an iPad very creatively. I've been a part of and participated in workshops.
Oh, I use the iPad for everything.
Speaking engagements. This iPad is like
I used to print my whatever I was speaking or teaching, and I would like print it out. But sometimes I would be working on it up to
make changes. Yep.
And I would be in a hotel or something and be trying to find, it was just a mess. But I figured out a way to use it that really works for me. I really like it.
I'm impressed by it. I know I would need to make a mental shift to the use of technology.
You might be
just
surprised
talked about
at how easily I know.
But it's really about learning how to use them in a way that is functional and contributes to your creativity rather than distracts from your creativity.
Good point.
They can be our best friend.
That's
technology.
right. As long as we master them and they do not master us.
In the break, I was also thinking about how just as a writer, I know there are plenty of other people who have studied this, like how many stories and plots from the past, like you simply couldn't write these movies now because if anyone had a cell phone in their pocket, done.
That's right.
Story's over.
That's
you just
right.
needed to call mom. She'd come pick you up. We're good.
But now it can be used as a plot point in so many interesting, inventive ways.
That's right. Yeah. And yet we also, I don't think any of us are interested in going to see or, watch stories that all hinge on people just calling each other or Marco Poloing each other. It's like, end of story. But
I feel like sometimes, have you seen the movie? It's that, God, I'm going to get the name of it wrong. It's where the guy finds out his daughter wasn't who he thought he was by like tracking through her social media.
I did.
Did you see that movie?
Is it good? It was interesting. It really was. I'm like, listen, I have to warn you. This is what I'm like every time someone's like, "Did you see that?" I'm like, "I did."
I don't know.
What do I recall of it?
Sure. Do you recommend it? Would I like it? Is it too scary for me?
It wasn't scary. It actually wasn't. That's what I'm trying to remember.
Is that John Cho? I love that actor.
Yeah, he was great.
I think he is dreamy.
I actually think it was interesting. I remember liking it, but I can't remember the details of it. I'm the perfect person to have come to your show 5 times because I literally won't remember. People be like, "How did that end?" I don't know. It's going to be a surprise ending for me too.
I'm also the perfect secret keeper because when you tell me stuff,
me too.
Sometimes people are like, "I'm going to tell you this, but that just happened to me this week," and they were like, "Please don't repeat it." And I was like, "Your secret is safe with me because I don't remember shit." And P.S. This just happened to me, and I have no recollection of who was telling me and what it was.
Susan, I have to tell you, without any names, I have to tell you a quick story. So years ago in a former life,
I'm nervous.
A friend of mine told me a secret that her boyfriend had told her and it was something he was mortified by.
Okay.
And I was a friend to her, and they worked through it, and over time, I saw that guy a few times, and his energy towards me had changed greatly, and to the point where I was like, "Is he mad at me? Like, I don't see him that. I don't know why he would be mad at me because I don't have anything. We don't really relate to each other or see each other or anything." And then this is years had gone by. And my friend I said, like, this is kind of weird, but like, is he mad at me for something? And she's like, he is. He's mad at you because I told you that secret.
Were you like,
and I was like, what secret was that? I'm like, literally, I don't know what secret you're talking about. She's like, you don't. And I'm like, I'm a terrible friend, but I don't remember. I'm the perfect person. Tell me anything.
God.
It won't stay. So
do you remember what the secret is now?
Well, this is the irony. They had to retell me what the secret was so that they could tell me why they were mad Not she wasn't, but she just refused.
It doesn't sound like he was mad. It sounds like he was like he resented her.
Genuinely, we sat down and had a talk, and I was like, "Well, first of all,
do anything. I just
she
was the
had to
receiver.
retell me exactly. She had to retell me. So now I know again what I used to know like 5 years ago. Now it's with me. And guess what? Now I'll never forget.
Oh my God, I cannot wait for you to tell me what this fucking secret is.
And so I was like, but I'm curious, like, why aren't you mad at her for telling me?
Because it's less expensive to be mad at you.
I guess so.
Yes.
I think he overcame it eventually. I hope so. Because I had no bad feelings, and I've never told a single soul.
So being on this isn't a secret thing, but being on the other side, just as sort of like, I've talked about this. I've written about it now. When I was in high school, you've heard this story before. When I was in high school, I had a huge crush on a local theater director in where I grew up in Dayton, Ohio. And I just did anything to be around him, near him. And one day at a rehearsal, he was like, I need a haircut. And I was like, I cut hair. I fucking lied. I said I cut hair. I totally don't cut hair. I've never cut hair.
Oh my God.
I went over to his house and I put scissors to his hair, and he had thick hair, and I butchered it.
Did he ever speak to you again?
He had to go have it corrected at a hairdresser.
God. Oh my God.
So that's when I was in high school, and I literally avoided him. I went away to college. I went to graduate school. I would come back and visit. I would see him like across a theater lobby, and I would run from him because I was so mortified. And I was like, I'm exorcising this demon. And I wrote a story that included that in it for a performance where I knew he would be present.
Oh.
And I told the story, and he came up to me after, and he's like, I have no recollection of that. I had been mortified and tortured by it
for years.
And he had no recollection of it. But you know what? For everybody who has no recollection of the secret or the story or the bad haircut, there are people that will hold a fucking grudge.
That's true. That's true. There are those. We aren't those people.
Apparently not.
Tell us anything.
Tell us anything.
We won't remember the next time.
We will be your secret keepers.
So are you ready for my spark?
Girl, I was born ready for this spark.
All right. The title of my spark is called
Oh God.
Bailing from Heart, or What Would You Risk?
Bailing from Heart.
Bailing from
what
Heart.
Would you risk?
Yes.
I love these weird little riddles.
Oh my God. So all right, so we'll get to the meaning of it all, but I started to think about this question of what would you risk, because I watched that documentary, the Academy Award winning documentary Free Solo. Have you seen this?
I don't think so.
So it is.
Oh, wait. Is this about climbing?
The free solo climb of El Capitan.
Oh, Lord.
It's like 3,500 feet in the air. I meant to look up what that is the equivalent of, but it's
a big mountain.
Tall. It's an enormous mountain. It's like straight up.
Where is it?
Yosemite? Is that right?
Don't know.
Fact checking. So
we're not journalists, and we're not
journalists.
We're not fact checkers.
We're not. So hey, that'll be fun. That's something fun for you all to do.
El Capitan.
Yes. Capitan.
Play along at home. Do our research and fact checking.
So essentially, I'm going to talk about a few things that happen in this movie. So spoiler alert.
Okay. So if you haven't seen the movie and you're freaked out because you haven't seen the movie, pause this, go watch it. Where can people see it? Is it on like Netflix or something?
It's on Amazon Prime right now.
There you go. Watch it on Prime.
Rent it there. But I'm not going to go blow by blow of the film and tell you. I'm just going to talk about the points that I feel kind of related to our creativity in a way. So, and there were more than I realized. So when I started watching it, I had nothing, I wasn't looking for a spark or anything. I just was like, I want to watch.
Your own business, trying to watch some good TV.
And this kind of movie I wanted to see in the movie theater, but I'm not exaggerating when I tell you, like, even right now, talking about being up high, my palms get so sweaty.
Really?
My palms are like, feel my palms. They're soaking wet.
Oh my God.
They're soaking
just
wet.
at the thought of
Just
this.
at the thought.
I have a little height thing too, but not that bad.
It's not for me. It's not for me. But so I am amazed. So free solo climbing is exactly how it sounds. No
tethers,
rope.
no
tether.
like where you go tap, tap, tap.
Absolutely
and you like
nothing. No, you are not tapping into it. You're finding tiny crevices. So, when you see those guys train like the upper third of their fingertips for strength,
oh my
they're
God.
clinging to
these little
tiny ridges. And as he explains it, sometimes it's not even about like hanging from a tiny ridge. It's like the pressure that you're holding yourself up there by the pressure of your right foot and your left hand squeezed into a crack. It's there is nothing. It's like if you and I tried to climb this wall, even if we did have small ridges on this wall, we're not getting
that
up
wall's
this wall.
not getting climbed.
And they're just way up there and nothing.
Jesus.
At one point I was watching, I was just like, birds, they're up high.
God,
Birds
this is
you could like
awful.
come upon a bird's nest, or you put your finger into
Then
a
you
tiny
just-
crevice and like a spider bite, or
No.
you just don't know. And
What
if
the
anything,
bird's nest, because birds are smart and
Yes.
they have prime, they've picked the prime ledges and crevices
Yes.
and little trees sticking out of the side.
Yeah.
What if the only place you had to grab or step was like a bird's nest place? Would you do it? That can't be in their code of honor.
you don't have any choice. I mean, it's a really good point, because code of honor. Oh my God. Honestly, I need a towel for my
Oh my
hands
God, you're
right
having
now.
a visceral physical response.
I really do.
How did you watch? How did you get through this movie?
It's really an amazing film. It's incredible.
It won the Academy Award.
It won the Academy Award.
Shite.
And so there were a lot of things that made me think about creativity and what would you risk.
What would you risk?
So he had, he being Alex Honnold, he's climbed free solo apparently a million other places. And if you're a climber, first, let me apologize for not knowing enough about your sport. But
We're not professional climbers.
But respect and props to you. Alex Honnold, so he's pretty infamous in his area anyway, but he had long dreamt of El Capitan, and people would be like, oh my God, you want to do that? No one's ever done it before.
Oh.
And so he says in the movie, of course, he's inside, he's like, yes, but I looked at that mountain and I kept thinking that's fucking scary.
No shit.
So he would like play it cool. Like, I don't know, maybe someday we'll see, see what happens. But really inside, he's like, I have a burning desire. Like, I have to do this. So
some people have that burning desire where they're like, I have to, what's his name? Philippe Petit, who had
on a string, on a wire,
man on wire, had to walk on the tightrope between.
Yes.
Some people have to build that mashed potato Devil's Mountain in their living room.
So then I think about us and our creative endeavors and whether or not, do I have to tell this story? Do I have to get this film made? Do I have to get this, this out there? So one of the first things that, as I was watching this, I was like, oh man, this got me thinking about creativity is, so he's a free solo climber, but here he is in this instance with a film crew. So he's climbing free form.
This gives me a bad feeling.
The film crew, of course, they're dangling from the top. They climb with the ropes.
Of course.
Yeah, of course.
And then drones, I'm guessing,
and they have drones.
Yeah.
And
Heliocopters.
They on the one hand, and they do interviews with the guys who are shooting. That they're shooting through the training process. They're shooting, not just like this one day of like today's the day. They're shooting for a long time, and everyone's getting used to things. And he has to map the course up this 3,500 foot.
How do you map it?
You practice. You practice, Susan. I'm going to tell you more about that in a minute. It's like a rehearsal.
But is there a rehearsal, El Capitan, that you're like?
Oh, but it's like a rehearsal. But as they say in the movie, it's like a rehearsal. But if you make a mistake, you die.
Fuck.
So it's just imagine that. Like you're like, okay, cross down right, stay, cross left. Oops, I meant cross right. Nope, that's it.
I don't want you
You're
tell
done.
me if I'm jumping ahead, but how do you know the surface, the topography of what
They study it and they practice it. So he did practice with ropes. He had to climb it 1,000 times. I mean, not 1,000, but
you climb it with ropes and then you go free solo.
But then you start practicing to where you don't touch that rope at all. You're climbing,
I'm with you.
But and at every juncture, you're wondering, how would I do this if I didn't have this rope on?
Free solo.
Yeah. So we'll get more back to that in a minute. But the film crew, they did an interview with them and they're like, of course, it's the most gorgeous scenery. It's going to be a beautiful shoot.
Yeah.
But they have this extra awareness, they know they're going to capture their friend doing great work. But of course, they might also capture him falling to his death.
Oh my God.
And on top of that, just to layer another bit of stress on, there's a chance always in the back of their minds that if the presence of them there
can disrupt his climb.
Could disrupt his climb,
that makes
or could
sense.
be the reason why he falls to his death.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So whether it's an overt mistake that they make or it's simply his awareness of a camera, causes him to make a different choice.
It seems like it would require the utmost focus and almost like transcendent.
That's exactly
flow.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally flow state, totally like autopilot in that way. That's like, I'm not listening to all of those voices that say, you might die.
Oh my God. Are you going to tell me how this ends?
I might.
Okay. I'm so
That's
nervous.
a cliffhanger on a cliffhanger.
What a nerd. Oh my God.
So they talk a lot about how his whole like free solo career, he wouldn't tell like his mom, he wouldn't tell anyone when he was doing it. They knew that he did it as a hobby, but just because it's very difficult to sit and wait for 6 hours to hear back.
It's a little bit like your kids going off to war.
That's right.
Into an active war zone.
That's right.
Are they going to make it back?
Yeah.
So he would,
everyone knew that that's what he did in his free time, but he wouldn't specifically say, hey mom, today I'm going to do this. So I thought it was interesting that the camera crew, artists in their own right, have an awareness of their role in this, how important it is to capture this and to, not only to credit the work that he's doing, but make it beautiful, make it artistic in its own right, and tell the story in an appropriate way. But in doing so, could they cause someone that they care about to lose his life? And it just got me thinking about like, shit, have I ever risked anything that great to be creative? And I think about like, I'm not trying to diminish the emotional risks that we take whenever we like share our
when
work.
you said that, I immediately think of emotional risk.
Right?
Yeah.
And I thought like, so yes, I'm taking emotional risks, but I've never risked my literal life for my passion or a hobby or for my job or because I like absolutely must do this. I could possibly die in the process, but that's okay. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So I just think it got me thinking about that and also maybe I could ease up on the like scary emotional risks, like big fucking deal a little bit. Like what happens if I show my work
Yes.
and someone doesn't like it?
Yes.
I'm not going to die.
You're not going to fall off El Capitan.
I'm not going to fall off of El Capitan.
Yeah. Though it can feel, I think sometimes it feels like when I teach and talk about risk, it does feel like, your heart races, you get some adrenaline pumped into your system. Sometimes there's some cortisol too. So it feels like a little bit of poison.
Yes.
It can really feel like you're a life or death situation.
Yes, it does. Yeah. And for him, he described it as, he's very vocal about, feeling in general in life that he's like not good enough.
Oh.
And I thought, hello, friend.
Kinsman.
And he said for him, these climbs are like a moment of perfection, because if it's not perfect, it ends differently. He did. That's right.
Wow.
So, when the stakes are life or death, then obviously it has to be perfect. But then again, back to our creativity, we're not dealing with those stakes. This is not life or death, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And in fact, getting ourselves into the idea that it's either perfect or it's not can be detrimental to us actually achieving our goals.
Yes. I just want to say though, while you're talking, I'm reflecting on, this is a privileged conversation, because I do think there are people like artists and theater makers in other places in the world and other cultures where making their art, which say may have a challenging political point of view against a current regime or something like that, that can be life or death.
That's right.
Yeah.
100%.
So we are privileged. 100%. This is a privileged conversation. Yeah.
I'm not saying that artists in general haven't put themselves in life or death situations. I'm just saying I have not.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And would I? I'm just questioning like how important is it to me? Not that I think you have to do that, but I think all I'm doing is comparing it to what might feel too risky to me.
Yeah.
I.e. making that phone call, putting myself out there, asking for help, getting critiqued, all of those things. They're not actually life and death.
And also like speaking a truth, revealing a truth. Like
That's
that
right.
is something that is that you have been silent about before.
That's right.
That can feel life or death. But
all of it feels very scary.
Yeah.
So I'm not diminishing and not judging anyone's level of risk. I'm just acknowledging my own. I think I could amp it up a little bit.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
I feel you.
So, other interesting things that I thought related to creativity. Alex said, people talk about suppressing your fear, like literally pushing it down, setting it aside, ignoring it, doing something with getting rid of the fear. And he's like, I don't look at it that way. I look at it as trying to expand my comfort zone by practicing the moves over and over and over again. So I work through the fear, so it's just not scary anymore.
Wow.
It's interesting, right?
It is. It sounds a little bit like prolonged exposure therapy, where you practice whatever the thing is. You put yourself in, if this makes sense, like a safe version of the situation over and over again. So for him, that might be with ropes as opposed to free solo.
That's right.
And you do it so you expand your comfort zone. I love that language. That's really good. Yeah.
So he thinks of it as expanding that. Interesting sidebar. He did have an MRI done for the movie because, he said there have been people who are like, you're crazy, or you're not all there, or there's something missing, etc. And so he did an MRI, and they put kind of scary pictures in front of him, during the MRI, and they saw no activity in his amygdala. And his amygdala is
the fight or flight.
That's right. It's the part of the brain that prepares for like emergency situations, or detecting fear,
Yeah.
etc. And they didn't like try to come to a conclusion like you don't have an like it's not working.
Yeah.
It could be that, again, he has expanded his comfort zone so that those images don't cause the fight or flight or the fear in him.
I wonder what images they put in front of him.
I just saw a few, like an airplane crash or this or that.
But like how graphic?
I couldn't say.
I just wonder like what, I mean, there are things that, images that are genuinely would be scary to me. And I wonder if they selected things that were genuinely.
Yeah, I wondered that too, because like when they discuss this part of El Capitan, like he's like, there's a moment where it's like you're 2/3 of the way through and there's a choice that has to be made. And either way, it's kind of like
neither choice is good.
Neither choice is good. But one of them requires you're dangling from your fingertips basically, and you've got your feet on tiny
toes,
ridges.
Yeah.
Literally releasing entirely, if you can imagine, and kind of jumping to catch a different tiny ledge.
F that,
right?
Yes.
Like my palms are basically dripping over here at this point. So I wonder, so to your point, like did they show him a picture like that?
A Frankenstein. Is he going to be like, fuck off?
Like there are different phases in the, like when they track the route he's going to take. I think there were 26 or 28 up the mountain, but there's one, it's basically called the boulder problem. And that's the section. And everyone refers to all these sections the same. Like they're like, well, he's at the such and such pass or the this midway or the whatnot.
You fucked pass. The boulder problem.
The boulder problem. And so I wonder, like, if they showed him a picture of the boulder problem, I wonder if that would have triggered his amygdala. Yeah. Interesting. But so he started one day he started the climb and they thought this is going to be the day, or I guess the day before they were like, we're going to try it out tomorrow. This totally is spoiler. And they determined that, so it was like fall of 2016, I think. And they were like, if we don't do this in the next, week or so, the weather's going to turn and I have to wait until next year. So, so they were like, okay, we're going to do it tomorrow. And interestingly, like they also have a little through line of his relationship in there, and I'll come back to that a little bit more. But he wasn't, again, like he has this serious girlfriend and she knows what he does, and she's living in the van with him at the base of the climb.
Dirt bagging it, I think they call it.
Yeah. Dirt bagging it.
Yeah.
And he wasn't going to tell her that the next day was the day. She's sort of like kind of figures it out, but she's there. And then she's like, and then she kind of hassles him a little bit.
There, sweetie?
Well, they're filming all through the training anyway. So they're all there every day. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
but at some point, wouldn't you think like you'd be like, it's tomorrow. Tomorrow.
She says, who you climbing with tomorrow? And he's like,
he's not a good liar.
He was about that good. And she's like, well, is tomorrow the day? Is that why you're not telling me? And so anyway, long story short, she kind of hassles him. So interestingly enough, so the next day he has to start his climb. So here's another little metaphor, creative metaphor. He has to start his climb in the dark at 4 a.m.
Does he do it in one day?
Yeah.
It's meant to be done in one day. So do you start it then so that you can like be at the boulder problem before the sun sets or something like that?
That's exactly right.
Did I guess it right?
You don't want, the sun can't set. And, or there's certain places where you don't want to be and have the sun be directly in your eyes, right as you're reaching the summit.
I've heard that with like people that are trying to summit Everest. There's this pass, the Hillary step or something like that, where if you don't get it by a certain time or weather condition, turn back. And we'll see you next year when you try to summit again. It's one of those.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Wow. That's another great movie I saw about that. Anyway. So he has to start his climb in the dark at 4 a.m. so that when he reaches the summit, he's not dealing with the sun in his eyes, etc. And I just thought about a couple of things. How many times, like, don't we have to start a lot of our projects in the dark? Like,
Camien,
I don't
a
know
metaphor.
I don't know what this is. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm starting.
I love it.
Okay. That's A. And then another thing is like the knowledge that as he climbs and at every juncture, he's not like when he gets to the hardest part, which is like the last third of this thing.
Oh, he's at his most tired.
He's at his most fatigued. He is exhausted. Think of those little fingertips that have been climbing their little
boulder
tips
problem
off. When he reaches the boulder problem, he's already been climbing. And when I say climbing, I mean like there isn't a moment where he's like, cool, I can like,
I'm just going to have this cliff bar.
Hang here for a second.
That's right.
He's not. He's
How is he
dangling
getting
off
nutrition?
a cliff. I mean, it's basically a 4-hour climb. He does it. He ends up doing it in 4 hours.
Does
but he
his
might be up there for
body
like 6.
look like just a sinew? Is he like one of those guys?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It's like protein.
Yeah.
And yeah. I don't think he eats for enjoyment. It's just like fuel.
Yeah.
So on this particular morning though, so he starts at 4 a.m. He starts in the dark. He starts climbing up and remembers like his girlfriend had tasseled him kind of the night before. And at least that's my perception of it. And then he goes up maybe an hour into it and he's like, I'm going to bail. Today's not the day.
Today's not the day.
It's not going to happen. And he was like really embarrassed. It's like he didn't want to talk about it too much when the cameras were rolling. But he stopped himself and everyone. So then they interviewed everyone around him. And they were like, what? Like he's bailing? And on the radio, one of them was like, wait, say again, he's bailing? They're like, yes, he's bailing. And the reason is he's bailing from heart. And the idea being like, I guess they don't explain it, but what I took from context is like,
describe my face right now.
I can't, but I wish but I need to take a picture. But bailing from heart is like his heart wasn't in it that day. And when the stakes are that high,
he knew.
He knew today's not my day. I'm not in this. My mind's not in this. My heart's not in this.
And he gets to choose.
That's right. He gets to choose. And the thing is, he beat himself up about it a little bit. And then fellow climbers were like, dude, you made the exact right choice. That's right.
I'm listening to this and I'm like, what an amazing moment to exercise your intuition.
That's right. Bailing from heart.
I don't think that's fear. I think that's intuition.
I completely agree. And sometimes you and I talk about like, there are times when people have made a decision that maybe they made in their 20s of like what they want to do or what they want to be.
Yeah.
Other things in life come around that make them happy and they're joyful, and yet they might live with some guilt for giving up something. They bailed on something, but they bailed from heart.
Oh.
And that's okay, right?
Yes.
So it turns out it was the right decision and he accepts it, but now he has to wait until the spring of the next year.
Oh, interest, of course.
Do you know what I mean? Because the weather
forgot.
was changing. That's right. So I thought that was really, really interesting. But the relationship part, it was another thing that I found to be fascinating. Again, it's not super explicit, but I'll just speak from what I took from it. So he gains, he's in a serious relationship during this time. And a lot of people are like, well, okay. Like he hasn't had a lot of serious relationships that last. I can imagine it would be a tough profession for that. But you see, and again, editing. So I'm sorry if I'm offending the young woman in the film, but you see multiple times where she's really kind of coming at him for what is this like crazy goal? Like, why do you have to do this?
Yeah.
And I felt myself so completely with him because it's not as though she was getting into a relationship with an accountant who decided he wanted to, sail the world alone all of a sudden. But she got involved with a free solo climber who wants to free solo climb.
Yeah.
So I found myself tensing up every time she would be like, you could die. And I'm like, that's not the visual. And you see him throughout the whole thing. The number of times that other people tell him he could die, and you can just see he has to put it out. It's like it's in his mind and it's outside, tucked away somewhere.
Yeah.
Like if he actually focused on that all the time, he would do nothing.
Yeah.
He would not go forth with any of his particular goals. And I think that, similarly, if we hear that voice in our heads constantly where people are like, but you could fail, but you could embarrass yourself, but maybe no one will like it. I mean, it's a wonder if you let those voices in, how do you achieve anything? And if you have a partner or a best friend who's like, come on, why do you really why is writing that so important, or why is doing that so important?
It's interesting. I noticed this in my relationship. I'm lucky enough to be with somebody who I get like wild. They're not crazy. It's not like I want to climb El Capitan, but I'll get like mildly obsessed. And I'm not using that hyperbolically. Like I'll get mildly obsessed with the idea of
it's a mild obsession
of doing something. For instance, my latest one, which you've heard me refer to, like I am sort of obsessed with vintage terrariums. Those ones that look like a plastic globe,
so awesome.
like sitting on
mid-century
a sarin and tulip white plastic base.
Yes,
they're not for everybody, but they're for me, and I really love like restoring them, finding them and restoring them, and then like planting little terrarium scapes in them. And instead, I can imagine being with somebody who was like kind of rolled their eyes at it or scoffed at it. Yes. I can really easily imagine, like, why would you spend your time and money? And I'm not with somebody like that. I'm with somebody who's like, he's like, Nathan says stuff like, I love that you love that. I love that you love that. Now, granted, I'm not imperiling myself by restoring a terrarium.
Right.
But when he says that stuff, it almost takes me by surprise. And I really appreciate him taking it in a positive direction instead of being,
judgmental
or less supportive or being a dick about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, and I just think it's got to be true of every person that's accomplished. And like in this guy, no one's ever done this before. So every person who's like, I want to do this thing, how many people are around them saying no one's ever done that? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yes. And what's your point? So,
it is scary though, if you think about like the possibility that he could like fall to his death.
Yeah.
But like you said, she didn't sign up. She knew.
That's right.
P.S. I haven't seen the movie and I'm sure she's lovely. And her concerns are genuinely founded.
Absolutely. Of course. But she'll have a conversation with him, like the day before he's climbing saying, would I ever be in a consideration and in your mind of like whether or not you, and it pained me to watch those because I'm sure in my 20s and, probably beyond, I'm sure that I had those insecure moments and those things, but I just now the person that I am and want to be and the person that I want to be with, thankfully, Wes, is this, I just want to be like, if that is your vision, your goal, your passion, I want to support. I don't want to try to change you and keep you from that.
Okay, here's the flip.
Okay.
So some years back, Nathan has always wanted to ride a motorcycle. And he bought his helmet and he took his classes and he got his license and he was getting ready to buy the bike. And I was like, I will never tell you what you can or cannot do.
Right.
But I'm really scared about this.
That's right.
Talking with people we have a friend who spent her career as a nurse in a spinal injury facility. And she was like, almost all the injuries are from motorcycle accidents.
Oof.
And I just presented it to him and said, I don't love it. I'm scared, and I'll probably be scared every time you're out on your bike. And at the same time, there was a terrible, terrible motorcycle wreck in our neighborhood where there were three big pieces of the bike. The bike split into three big pieces, and they were practically on the three different corners of the intersection. So you only can imagine what happened to the body that was on the bike.
Oh, God.
And I just expressed it to Nathan, and I didn't hear any more about the motorcycle. And like 2 weeks later, I was like, so what's the deal with the bike? And he was like, I heard your concerns. And I thought if there was something that you really wanted to do or liked to do, like that was dangerous, I'd want you to hear my concerns about that too.
Sure.
And I just decided I'll like get my yah-yahs out in a different way. And I was super grateful that he made that choice.
100%.
So I put myself in that woman's. P.S. I have not seen this movie, but I can imagine. I empathize with her.
I do too. But a couple of differences. One, you did not meet a motorcycle rider at a motorcycling event.
I know.
Get on the back of his motorcycle, fall in love with him, and then say,
I know.
Can you stop being the person
you're right. I know.
She met him at a book signing for his book about free solo climbing, where he was, I'm like, you got it. You knew exactly what you were getting. Okay. But I'm not having empathy for her. I just think you realize this conversation you're having right now with him could cause him to doubt himself in a moment on the mountain tomorrow. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. Like, or prevent him from getting a really, really good night's sleep.
That's right. Yeah. You need to, you need to decide, are you going to be supportive, or can you not live with who this person is and the choices they're making? But I'm totally with you. And I would want that for Wes. And I'm sure, just taking up a hobby now, as opposed to something that they've been doing and have always done prior to your, but I wanted to go back just quickly to the, to remember when I was talking about him saying like his idea is to expand his comfort zone by practicing the moves over and over again.
Love it.
And they talk about this with Olympic level athletes as well. Like there's practicing it in having your body really do it, and practicing in your mind.
Yes.
Seeing every detail from the starting blocks to the sound of the gun to the, so if you don't mind, I'd like to I'm going to give you a little taste of what he has in his journal. And this is just edited. Like they edited it so that obviously they didn't share it all, but just an idea of him. So this is what he's visualizing.
Okay. P.S. And they say that, doesn't research show, again, this is my segment where I misremember articles. Doesn't research say that imagining, like going through the scenario of hitting the free throw, hitting the free throw, the mind doesn't know what's real and what's not.
That's right.
So that mental practice is as important as the physical practice.
That's right.
Okay. So hit me with these.
So here's him.
Journaling.
Pitch 1, stay left toward the top, feels more secure. Splitter. Pitch 2, trust the right foot. Rock on, trust the feet. Right hand to last undercling. 8, easy romp, go fast. 9, stay outside of the down climb, careful of the blocks. Pitch 26, lie back and up the corner. Keep left hand pinch thing, right foot back, step on lower ledge, left foot faced against the wall, stand up. Left hand to the huge ear jug thing, switch the feet, match the big jug, left foot jams into the crack, right hand down, pulling on top part of the jug, left hand goes into the flared slot. either fist jam or hand jam into the slot, sag down into it, right hand crosses to an undercling, side pull. Right foot sinks low to a flat edge, left foot through an edge, right foot, back steps really high so you can sag your weight around the corner, left foot out to the big horn, right hand through the little finger pocket. You go left foot out an edge around the corner. You can actually push all the way into the corner, left hand to the other undercling, switch your feet on the rail, then just reach to the jugs and it's done.
Okay. I feel like we have the cheat sheet, so now you and me can climb El Capitan.
We're ready.
Thanks, suckers. Also, it reminds me of Ready Player One. It reminds me of a video game. It's like, to do this, you have to watch out for this thing. It's going to throw a fireball at you. Like you have to. Yes.
Jump and grab the rings.
Yeah.
Now duck. Now, yes. But imagine like, that's his version of practice. That's his mental practice.
Yes.
Picturing it. And like I said, like if you're like, let's say you're rehearsing a show, imagine practicing like that. I mean, obviously you don't want to because you don't want to be robotic, but if every move was life or death,
things like that it is good to practice like that. The other thing that I wonder is what happens if due to weather, due to like, what if the course changes? You know, you said he'd have to wait until the spring.
Yeah.
What if like a little snow took off one of the little jug handle things, and you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Those little cracks. I thought of that too because
what if a bird built a nest? What if a spider built a nest? Shit.
What if a spider like bites your finger when you stick it in a crack?
Yeah.
What are you going to do? How are you getting down from there without your hand?
Don't you think some adrenaline would stave off well, it depends on the spider.
Maybe. But I guess like if a bird flew out of a crack right into your face, you would just be like, like you just have a reaction.
A bird flew in my mouth.
Bird in my mouth. I wasn't expecting that.
That's how I'm going to die on El Capitan.
Oh, no. But I just thought
that is so cool.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And in terms of maybe not visualizing your every move on stage, but visualizing and practicing those moments in our careers and in our creativity and how we want them to play out.
Yeah.
There's no harm in it.
So say that thing again. It's like expanding your
comfort zone through practice.
Your comfort zone.
Those things aren't so scary to you.
I'm writing that down. Expanding your comfort zone. That to me is such a huge spark.
So I'm going to say Alex Hanold, first person ever to free solo El Capitan on June 3rd, 2017 in 3 hours and 56 minutes. And what a huge gift to all of us creatives. I felt like that movie had so many takeaways that related to our experiences as
risk
creatives.
Takers, creatives. Free Solo is the name of the movie.
Solo.
Fuck, that's a good spark.
Bailing by heart.
Bailing by heart. Intuition versus fear. That's intuition, baby. Expanding your comfort zone. I'm all about it. Oh, Camien, that was such a good spark.
That was a fun one.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it was super good.
Thank you for that.
I
love that. This nourishes me. Well, this has been another episode of the Spark File. We hope we put another bunch of sparks in your file.
That's right.
Listen to my voice when I say if there is a spark that you'd like us to explore or a spark that you'd like to share, why don't you email us at thesparkfile@gmail.com and be sure to subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. As the kids say, subscribe, rate, and review.
That's right. Listen up. If anything here like tickles your fancy or gets your creative juices flowing, it's your turn to take a spark and fan it into a flame.
And be sure to tell us what you made of it.
Yes, please,
you got to write it, recite it, fricassee it, go on and be it. Just take it and make it. Bye.
Bye. When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I want to make or how I want to be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark fire.
Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the Spark File here to let you know that the doors are open for the Spark File Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the Chief Creative Officer and Chief Marketing Officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk. Go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume.